Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Trustees meeting to order on Tuesday, October 15th at approximately 6 p.m. In order for everyone to hear everybody else's enlightened discussion, would you please turn off or turn down your cell phones? Would you please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You just had to go do
Roll call, please.
Lino.
Here.
Baker.
Here.
Bell. Duffy. Adamco.
Here.
And Zashki.
Here.
Turtle is excused.
Approval of the agenda as published.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes as published.
I'll make that motion.
Any changes, additions, deletions, grammatical remarks, other errors or comments? If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Comments and correspondence. Does anybody in the audience care to make a comment about a non-agenda item? Correspondence.
Okay, there's a thank you letter from Jim Schusler of the DC EDC that was sent to Bo. There's also a letter from the DC EDC requesting the village to continue to support that agency. There's a law incident address history report that was received from the Sheriff's Department, and that pertains to May through August, I believe. There's also an email concerning retired educators are going to be hosting the Wisconsin Retirement System Seminar, so if anyone wants to go to that, they're welcome. There's also an email from Linda Waite on behalf of the Coastal Byways Council. They're asking that the support for the coastal byways be increased to $300. So that might be something you want to address during the budget session. There's also an invite to the DC Visitor Bureau annual meeting and dinner. Typically, the village will pay if board members want to go. So if any of you would like to attend, please let me know as soon as possible. There's also an email from Dan Keene, who's the Door County Emergency Management Director. And then in the materials that I passed out prior to the meeting, there's a flyer about a ransomware symposium, which will be conducted at the Door County Community Center on November 26th.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any correspondence items they want to add?
I do not.
New business. Item number 1, consider request from Mobile One, Inc. and agent David W. Lino for various licenses for the property located at 2579 South Bay Shore Drive. Consider motion for action if appropriate. That, of course, in case you don't know, is the station I just sold. I'm going to be their agent, supposedly, if you will approve it. So I'm going to recuse myself and turn it over to Pat to operate item number 1.
Okay, so we're looking, the recommendation is the village board consider the request by Mobile One to issue a prorated Class A beer license, soda license, and tobacco license for 2579 South Bay Shore Drive.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
This is starting on October 1st, so we already issued it?
Is that an error on that? Should it be November 1st?
Dave? Nate was questioning the dates on there. It says October 1st.
It says there was a change in ownership as of October 1st.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But it says for the license period beginning October 1st, 2019.
That's what they were told to put in the block when they called the office.
So that would be a Heidi question. I can ask her, but I believe that.
The sale date was September 30th, so the ownership date was in October 1st.
They don't have any licenses yet. That's what this is for.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay, and then are you okay with appointing Dave Lino as the agent for Mobile One, Inc.?
Isn't that the motion you made?
Is that part of that
Yeah.
motion? Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I'll answer one question that came up. The question I was asked before about was, why am I going to be the agent? Until they're moving from Illinois, so until they become Wisconsin residents for 90 days, they can't be the agent, but they can appoint an agent who is a local resident. So I agreed to be their agent until they meet their requirement of residency.
What are you gonna do with
Then they'll
yourself?
come back and they'll ask again to change the agent, I'm sure. So. Item number 2, public hearing and discussion on the draft of the recommended 2020 budget for the Village of Sister Bay. Consider a motion to have further discussion regarding that document and formally adopt it at a future meeting of the village board. So before we get started on the public hearing, I would like Bo and Tasha to give us an overview of the
Okay.
budget.
I'm going to keep it fairly short. The proposed budget has been provided in the meeting packet. The budget has also been made available on the website and at the village administration office the last few weeks. The budget as presented shows continued increase in the village's assessed value, which is of course excellent. Net new construction numbers continue to come in each year between $2 million and $6 million. In 2019, the village had $4.9 million in net new construction. We expect to see this continue for the next couple of years. For every $1 million in net new construction, the village is able to generate approximately $5,900 in tax revenue. So, the current budget, as proposed, has a levy of $2,481,509. The mill rate remains unchanged from 2018 at $5.88 per thousand. We were able to forego a tax increase and maintain all of our existing services through a reduction in debt service payments in 2020 of over $255,000, expenditure savings in the general fund throughout 2019, and applying fund balance to the 2020 budget. The 2020 budget ends the year with a healthy general fund balance of over 30%, that's what is projected, which is above our policy minimum of 25%. By maintaining a general fund balance of over 25%, we ensure that the village maintains adequate cash flow for the year. I do want to review some changes that took place between when the budget was published and as it currently stands. The first is estimated general transportation aids. Those are not made available until October 1st, which was after the posting date. General transportation aids are $101,462 for 2020, which is about $13,000 more than it was last year. So that's good. The EMS building rental charges are budgeted to increase for 2020. This is on page 39 of your board packet. County EMS will reimburse the village for 10% of the maintenance costs at the fire station. With the major roof repair that is expected, the revenue related to that outlay has been budgeted for 2020. The expenditure for the fire station maintenance was moved to 2020. This is on page 42 of your packet. We had budgeted for this work to be completed in 2019. However, if the project is to be publicly bid, we will have to shift the expenditure into 2020. It cannot be completed in 2019 as expected. Number 4 would be support for the Sister Bay Liberty Grove Fire Department was adjusted lower. The increase in the joint fire department budget is controlled by the levy limit and is maxed out at CPI as of September 30th plus 2%. So once CPI is released in the middle of October, then we go back and adjust the budget a little bit. So the maximum increase of 3.7% was applied, which puts the budget at $142,828 for the fire department. Our share of that.
For the village.
Our share of that portion, of that budget. The amount transferred to CIP was decreased by $65,000, and the funds were pulled from various CIP reserve line items. Because of the need to move the expenditure for the fire station roof from 2019 to 2020, that put the 2020 expenditures in excess of the amount allowed by the expenditure restraint program. Based on the fund balance, the village could transfer more to the CIP. However, we would be foregoing the expenditure restraint payment of approximately $30,000 in 2021. Number 6 We've not had discussion on this at the finance level, but this was discussion that came up at water, sewer, and storm sewer. There's been discussion about adding expense for storm sewer drainage. This is on page 50 of your budget, or of your board meeting packet. The committee discussed an adjustment that would fund televising our existing storm sewer lines to identify the location and the condition. There was also a discussion of adding this as a layer to the GIS. Those two options were discussed with Rupert Milkie, and they came up with a couple of different ways to do this for us. The estimated cost of those two options is $18,500 and $23,000, so a fairly pricey addition to the budget. One option involves more work by staff to add the attributes of the pipes and structures to the GIS, so that's the difference in the price. Because the condition and the location of the storm sewer systems is not well known, this is really just a total cost estimate, and we could use it as a cap on services for the year. We could say we want to spend $18,000, and when we run out of that, we're done for the year, and then move forward with some more next year. The Finance Committee also accepted the recommendation from the Marina Committee Chair to share the portion of expense, which would be $15,000, for remodeling the public bathrooms at the marina, provided that additional signage be displayed. In order to accommodate this additional expense in the general fund, contingency lines were reduced throughout the general fund. The anticipated grant then was also split between the general fund and the marina. And that's all I was gonna say about the budget, so I would take any questions.
So the utility you're just talking about, will
Yes.
that then go to the committee to determine what they want to do, or what's the plan?
Regarding the storm sewer?
Right,
Yes, it would go to the committee to determine exactly which route they want to take. If we wanted to put this in the budget, however, we would need to find other places to pull that from.
okay. So in other words, it's not in the budget.
It is
So
not
we'll
in the
go back
budget
to talk
now.
about it maybe next year.
No,
we
this
could
was a
put it-
recent discussion
Yeah.
that we had, and we wanted to get this in here before the budget was finalized.
The reason for trying to get it into the 2020 budget is we are starting to, have some funds from the Pratt to do some of that work. And if we're planning on doing road work, we would also need to do storm sewer work and potentially water and sewer work along with that. And we don't, in a lot of cases, don't know exactly where the storm sewers are, nor the condition. At the very least, I think what we'd like to see is that the storm sewers begin to be televised. That cost alone, though, is about $8,000 to $10,000 for the next year. And we truly just don't know what that cost is gonna be, that we would have to set it and cap it. And that is not available within our existing budget. So again, we would have to, if we wanted to move forward with that, put that into the budget and find another place to pull that from.
Okay, so that.
And I don't have any recommendations, honestly, today. I got these numbers around,
Recently.
this afternoon, so.
Okay, so that $8,000 to $10,000 estimate is to televise all the potential storm sewer?
Correct.
Or, okay, so I think we talked about the idea of as they're going around I think right now, we're gonna be
Doing
on a
like
4-year
phases.
cycle for the water.
Yeah.
As long as they're doing that, do the stormwater at the same time.
We could break it up. What I talked with Mike about when we talked about this was that the next portion of the sewer that they are televising is not in the downtown area.
Okay.
And the downtown Sister Bay area, the waterfront area, is the most in need of storm sewer, other than Bayshore Drive. Bayshore Drive has storm sewer, we know that, and that's, fairly new.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's the side streets,
Yeah.
so.
And with these recent changes with the water levels and everything, it's just gonna be important to ramp up that process so we can get everything recorded into our new GIS system. And then it's just kind of like a stepping stone, and we're kind of getting there a little faster than anticipated. Because this will be really useful for us in the future to have this recorded and put down in our GIS. That way in the future, we can just press a button and have it all up.
Right. Unlike the water and sewer, we do not have maps that tell us where these things are. They actually have to televise, and then when they get to the end of the pipe, ping it
Yeah.
and record it that way.
Okay.
So, and that's the extent of my storm sewer knowledge right there.
That's pretty good, Tasha.
Yeah.
The marina bathrooms, those would be, they'd be public bathrooms, they wouldn't be.
Correct.
Right, those are the public.
Right.
Yep.
Any other questions before I turn it over to public hearing? So just so you know, we'll have the public hearing, we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll make a motion to defer this for discussion to the next board meeting. Since a lot of you just getting this information now, we give you a month or until the next board meeting to look at it, ask questions, talk to Tasha, whoever, Bo, to get the information that you need to answer any question. And they'll have plus any changes that'll have to be done.
Right.
So.
And there's potential for changes, I should
Right.
say that. There are a couple things that are not in this budget yet. One is we do not have quotes back on health insurance. I did receive the very first quote, and that's from our current provider. Current insurance was a 6.5% increase. What we have in here right now is a 20% increase. So that would definitely fall within budget, but we did want to go into the marketplace and look at different options this year. We haven't done that in several years. So we're waiting for that information to come back. Also, Delta Dental came back with their quote, and that was a 2% increase, and we have a 5% increase budgeted. So there might be some room to do things yet, but those are big things that aren't in here yet.
Okay.
Okay.
With that, I will open it up to the general public for a public hearing on the proposed 2020 budget for the Village of Sister Bay. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make any comments or ask any questions about the proposed budget as presented tonight? Going once?
Dead silence.
Going twice? Going 3 times? I'll now close the public hearing on the proposed budget for the village in 2020 and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 2020 annual budget.
No.
Okay,
We were going to make a motion to discuss it at the next village board meeting.
got it, okay.
All about that further discussion shall take place regarding the recommended 2020 budget for the Village of Sister Bay on whatever date you say, and at that time, the trustees shall consider formal adoption of that document.
I think that's what I heard him say.
Yeah.
So,
I'll second it.
so the one thing is we're gonna need a special board meeting for early November for this, for the budget.
Yeah, otherwise this falls really late into
Yep.
Otherwise
tax
we're-
season
yeah.
and rollout, so.
So we'll have to aim for early November.
So are there any dates that don't work for you guys?
We can schedule that.
We can talk about that after.
Okay.
Later.
And so the motion should say a special meeting in November then, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I second
Did somebody second that?
it. I did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All that work, Tasha. No comments.
And
Nice
what we-
work, by the way.
Good job.
Nice work.
And remember, for the discussion, Tasha, Pat's rush to try and get it approved means there's some wiggle room in there because he was getting more than he thought for the marina, so.
Okay, item number 3, discussion regarding recommendation from the Finance Committee that the village board accept the proposal which was submitted by Going Garbage and Recycling for a 4-year contract with garbage collection and recycling services, which will commence on January 1st, 2020, and the recommendation of the Finance Committee to also accept Jeff Johnson's offer to see that the curbside recycling guide that was included in the previously mentioned proposal is reproduced and provided to all the taxpayers in the village at no cost to the village. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Does anyone have any questions on that?
Wait.
It's pretty,
No, we need a motion first.
oh, okay.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, discussion?
It's pretty straightforward. We had one proposal. It's pretty good.
Well, we did put on an RFP,
Yep.
we had one response.
Yep.
Right. Which was the current provider.
Yep.
Pretty
No
much what,
discussion?
pretty much what it was last year with a few changes here or there.
Similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of change in the structure.
Yep.
If you have any questions, Luke Nelson and Andrew Gantman from Going are here.
Questions? No?
I'm good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried?
Did you also want to
Thank you.
accept Jeff Johnson's offer for the curbside recycling guide? Should that be part of that motion?
Well, it said and, so as part of the motion, it would be
Okay.
included, right?
Yeah.
Item number 4, discussion regarding the recommendation from the Plan Commission that a few grammatical revisions be made to the approved version of the development agreement for the Door Hotel before it is executed by any of the required parties. Consider a motion for action if appropriate. I'll make that motion. What do you want to tell us?
Janelle, do you want to?
Sure. The original development agreement for the hotel was approved back in February. Because there were a number of delays with the closing, You guys had directed us to refer this back to the Plan Commission just to see if there were any revisions that they wanted. If you look at the materials that I provided to you prior to the meeting, there's a track changes version of the pages of the development agreement that the Plan Commission has recommended. There aren't really very many. It just pertains to some dates as well as a little bit of a revision.
So the Plan Commission reviewed this. This is what they recommended.
Yep.
Yes, this is the original approved document. It is possible that an amendment may be presented to you at a later time.
Correct.
Okay. And we did close on the property purchase.
You did?
Yes, just an FYI, right. Any questions? No? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried?
I'm sorry, who seconded that motion? I know it was Dave.
I thought it was Scott.
I did.
Was it you, Nate?
Yeah, I did.
There you go.
Oh,
Okay,
Nate.
Nate.
Okay, beat me to it.
Item number 5, discussion regarding creation of an ad hoc village planning committee. Consider a motion for action if appropriate. So please substitute the word planning for refurbishment on your documentation. What this is Parks Committee has been meeting with, Denise and I in particular, have been meeting with an architect to look at and review potential changes, refurbishing, doing things here at the Village Hall. They came back with an initial plan, which also includes some bathrooms for the marina on this end of the marina for their private use. And we have a plan or two to take a look at, and that opened up to a broader discussion. Before we start taking a look at plans, what do we really want to do with the Village Hall? What should we do? What should we look at? So we decided that we'd like to create an ad hoc committee. I'm proposing to be comprised of 5 members. And at least one of those members would be a village board member, and either 3 or 4 of the additional 5 would be citizen members. That we would ask people that have an interest in looking at the future of this building and what we want to do with it going forward. So I'm asking that you approve the creation of that committee, and then we will fill it at next month's meeting with interested parties.
So does that mean that there's enough people interested that we know it would absolutely be filled, or are we, in essence, striving to fill
It would
the
be
committee?
filled.
Okay.
It would be filled. And I will ask other people if they have interest too. I mean, right now, there's probably about 9 people that I've talked to that have an interest in it.
Okay.
So
Are you gonna keep it at 5, or are you gonna make it more if there's more
I'm going
interest?
to keep it at 5,
2, okay.
otherwise it gets a little unruly.
Yep.
But- So I would need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Second, any other questions, discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, thank you.
Okay, is it okay that the village board authorizes the creation of an ad hoc village hall planning committee? That committee shall consist of 1 trustee and 4 citizens, and the members of the committee will be charged with making a recommendation or recommendations regarding renovations and potential improvements that can be made to the village hall.
The only thing I would add to that is that it'll be an ad hoc committee of Parks Committee.
Okay.
Okay.
So they'll be under the purview of the Parks Committee.
Yep. Did we vote? Did we vote on that yet?
Yeah, I believe that's done. I think Chad and Rob made that motion.
Right. I know we had the motion.
Do we vote?
Did we vote?
No, we did not.
Because we made the change. All in favor?
Aye.
There it is.
Opposed? Thank you. Discussion regarding the approval of the United States Department of Agriculture Rural Utilities Service Legal Services Agreement between the Village of Sister Bay and Randall J. Nesbitt pursuant to RUS Bulletin 1780-7. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Okay, so there's not a board report related to all of these, but I'll just briefly describe them all for you. This is a legal service agreement. It's a standard form required by the USDA when participating in their grant and loan program. The agreement addresses Randy's services for the village related specifically to this project. The related legal costs are expected to be about $6,500 and would be rolled into the project.
So can you explain what grant you're speaking about?
Yes, this is a USDA Rural Utility Service grant for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. The grant would be around 1.6 million. The loan would be around 3.4 million.
And as a result of receiving the grant, they require certain things to be in place in village policy, which
Yes.
is what we're talking about.
I'm sure this won't be the last time you see things like this come through.
Somebody like to make a
So
motion?
does this have to be in place before the bond closing?
Yes, this has to be in place before we really move forward.
So then, on page 200, where it says, said fees to be payable in the following manner and at the following times upon bond closing unless earlier paid, it sounds like we actually have to have them paid before the bond closing.
No, they would be paid at the bond closing,
okay.
so when
All
the
right.
funds come through, we can pay his fee.
Okay. All right.
Somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Discussion regarding the approval of professional services agreement between the Village of Sister Bay and Quarles and Brady LLP for the proposed issuance of approximately $3,391,000 in revenue bonds for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Again, this would be an agreement between the village and Quarles and Brady to serve as the village's bond counsel with respect to the permanent financing. That financing won't be finalized until 2021. It's a requirement of the USDA that the board formally authorizes the professional services agreement. The fees related to this financing would be $12,500. Quarles and Brady is typically used in this type of service. They really look at all of the legal and tax aspects of the issuance.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 8, discussion regarding the approval of professional services agreement between the Village of Sister Bay and Quarles Brady LLP for the proposed issuance of $3,391,000 in revenue bond anticipation notes in-term financing for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Okay, this agreement is very similar to the previous agreement with Quarles and Brady. This would, however, be for the interim financing. Interim financing is basically a construction loan until the bonds are officially closed. And we would go out to various banks to obtain this financing. The fees related to this interim financing would be around $9,500.
Questions?
So there was there another one that was like 24, or this is one of these?
There's another one coming.
That's coming, that's
Yeah,
next.
there's a third one.
Okay.
Expensive endeavor.
No, I know, not yet.
Nothing's free.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Tasha, have you dealt with these firms before?
Yes, we used Quarles and Brady as bond counsel on our previous issuance for the village.
Okay.
And I believe Quarles and Brady was used on previous issuances before that as well.
Item 9, discussion regarding the approval of professional services agreement between the Village of Sister Bay, Robert W. Baird and Company for the purpose of serving as placement agent on the proposed issuance of approximately $3,391,000 note anticipation notes and revenue bonds. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Okay, again, this is an agreement between the village and Baird, serve as the placement agent with respect to both the interim financing and the permanent financing. So as Quarles and Brady did it in 2 agreements, Baird has rolled it all into 1 agreement. The fees related to this agreement will be approximately $25,000. Baird, as a placement agent, actively seeks out those who would buy our bonds and works with us on, the rating reports and all of the stuff that goes into getting the bonds to be sellable.
It says
Yeah.
3,395,000 versus the 3,391,000. Is that just a typo, or is that just a fee added?
It's a fee added in.
Okay.
Yeah. They round it to the nearest 5.
Okay.
So.
At least it's 5,000 and not 5 million.
Right.
Good business.
So do we, if
Yes.
we're paying these folks, sometimes
Yes.
in mortgage situations or general finance situations, the borrowers or the banks may provide kickbacks to the placement agents to gain that deal. Do we have agreements that we're paying them so that they have our best interests and are acting in a fiduciary responsibility and will receive no additional compensation from any said prospective purchaser of the bonds?
I'm not
I
sure
mean, if
how
we're
to
paying
answer
them,
that
I
one.
want to know we're paying them. I don't want to, if they're going to go out and shop it around, then okay, if you're going to get so much for them, we should get a discount off of what that's the way I'm
I
looking at
can
it.
look into that.
Okay.
for you. Make a note for that.
Because you can negotiate that on other finance agreements. Here's the rate, but oh, by the way, I can make it better, and so, it's fine if this is what it costs, but,
I'll address that.
okay.
Or they may come back and say, well, it's only 5,000 because we're getting 12,000 from. Right,
Correct.
Which is fine.
Right, right.
Right. Okay. We need a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Item number 10, discussion regarding the creation of a formal conflict of interest policy. Consider a motion for action if appropriate. And this also has to do with
Yes.
USDA.
So in reviewing all of our policies, and I.
Do you want me to take over? Sorry,
Sure,
I was
go
getting
ahead.
there. Sorry about that on the notes. So this was part of the information that's needed for the USDA grant. When I got here, I was looking through our policies and manuals to try and find a conflict of interest policy. I just didn't see one, so I created one, and I used other communities' information to create this. It's just a standard conflict of interest policy. They're pretty similar from municipality to municipality. The finance committee reviewed this and made a minor change, and so that the final document, or the final draft, I should say, is what you see in your packet.
And it's not in conflict with our bylaws?
It is not in conflict.
Okay. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 11, discussion regarding resolution 410-101519, use of streets and alleys. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
This resolution firmly states that the Village of Sister Bay Sewer and Water Utility will be able to have access to and use of the streets, alleys, and properties owned by the Village of Sister Bay. This again is a requirement of the USDA for moving forward with grant loan process.
Okay. I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 12, discussion regarding the progress of the wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Okay. Josh Stefik was able to come to the Utilities Committee meeting on, October 8th to provide an update on the treatment plant project. Earlier today, I did send out a number of design drawings for you to review. The design plan was submitted to the DNR on October 1st. The DNR has up to 90 days to review the project. Mike tested 2 units for the sludge thickening process, and both of those processes will be included in the bid. That's one thing that's been different from discussions about this in the past. He liked both, and so we're including both as bid options. Sorry, my computer just blinked on me. Okay. The UV process remains in the design to replace the current disinfection system. You will note, if you look at those design processes, we are adding a little bit on to the treatment plant building, We are adding additional space for office space and for a conference room and storage. And on the other end of the building, we'll be adding on several garage stalls and some outdoor parking for our employees. So, if you have specific questions about the design, I would urge you to call Mike, because he knows far more about it than I do.
And I'm assuming and presuming that the utility committee has gone over this multiple times with a fine-tooth comb to the point they're probably sick of it, and they know it in great detail.
Yes.
And
The Utilities Committee unanimously recommended moving forward with the design phase plan
Okay.
as it was presented.
Okay.
The only question I might have is, on the drawings, I think it was page 2, something about the grid system which we replaced in 16. They're not gonna put a new one in, are they?
No, so
They're gonna work around it?
Right, there are a couple things with that grid system that were not upgraded, and one of them was the electrical. So the electrical this time will be upgraded, and then the other part of the building is the pre-treatment, and there's a pump there that is no longer in use, so they're gonna actually demo that pump, and free up that space. So that's really it when it comes to the grid and pre-treatment system, as far as I'm aware.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, since this is a discussion, we really don't need a motion.
No.
Item 13, discussion regarding President Lino's recommended appointments. Consider a motion for action if appropriate. The only one I have for tonight would be Vivian, how do you say her last name? Nino. Nino?
Nino.
Nino.
Rhymes with yours.
Pardon?
It rhymes with yours, you're okay.
Oh, that's what I was saying, what rhymes with me? To the Zoning Board of Appeals.
You appoint her for a term to expire in 2021.
Okay. We need a motion to do that?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now the work begins, right? Report on county activities and County Supervisor Dave Lino. The county is doing the same thing that the village is doing, working through their budget process. Village is actually like one cycle ahead of where the county is. The next meeting for the county board isn't until the last Tuesday in October. It's very late this month. But that's to get all the budget items done and complete. So I don't have much to add at this point in time, other than we're working on the budget. So if somebody has questions about something. Item 15, report by the village administrator on village activities and projects.
Does anyone have any discussion on that?
Do you want to talk about the ribbon cutting at Pebble Beach?
Yes, so Friday, October 18th at 2:30 PM, we will be meeting with the Land Trust to do our ribbon cutting ceremony. Dan and his crew have already moved that portion of the fence that's on the southern side of Pebble Beach and took out the board across with the keep out private property sign. And we moved it over to Fuzzy's side for this ceremony so that we can take that down instead of doing a traditional ribbon cutting ceremony. We're meeting on Fuzzy's side, and so it made no sense to do a trek all the way to the other side for the photo op. So that should be a really unique opportunity and good picture time.
And we're expecting who from the state to be here?
We should be expecting high officials from the Department of Administration as well as hopefully the Lieutenant Governor. So.
The Department of Administration, Joel Brennan, and probably one of his secretaries.
Correct.
Deputies will be here. We're very instrumental in getting dollars moved around for the $1 million NOAA grant. They're the state agency that administers that grant. And they were able to move funds around, so we were able to close on time and not lose the $1 million. The $1 million would have expired on September 30th. But with their help, we did lobby them, and they stepped up and were able to help us out quite a bit about making that happen. They would also be the department that we would be involved with in Knowles Nelson grant application for the additional dollars that we would be asking for. I think it's very encouraging that they want to take part and come up here from Madison for the ribbon cutting. So I think they're invested in that project with us, so I think that's great. So anybody that can show up for that period of time, probably a 30-minute would be appreciated. I'd like to show them a good show of support from the village.
Yeah, we know how busy it is. They want to get up here and, you know, see the project, and it'd be great if you guys could all.
What time would you like us there, like 2:15?
It'll start at 2:30. So if you get there around 2:15, it'll be.
Great. Any other
I
questions?
just, on the heels of Bo's report, Danny's here tonight, I would just like to say, and it's not the first month I felt this way, Danny, your reports are excellent. The conciseness of them and getting right to the point is excellent month after month, thank you.
Review the financial statements and consideration of a motion to approve the monthly bills.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Any
We
discussion?
heard
Do I have
your
a
name.
third? Do I have a third?
Any
Please
discussion
speak
on the monthly
clearly.
bills?
Any questions about the bills?
And one.
None?
What was that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We will do committee reports next. Starting with Admin Committee. Admin has not met. Admin and Comp Oversight has not met. Common Technology has not met. Coastal Byways.
Janelle mentioned the key thing about the slight increase in funds wanted.
And this would be the time to have that discussion. What was the
I believe it was $250 before, right, Janelle?
$250 last year?
Yeah.
And it's just going up $50 to $300.
Okay. So if you'd like to make a motion that we agree to increase to 300, now would be the time to do that.
I would motion that we agree to raise it to 300 from 250.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'm not sure.
What?
Oh, sorry, what are we raising again? Sorry, I missed the first part.
Coastal Byways, our annual contribution,
$50.
going up by $50. Right?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. DCECD.
It's fundraising time of the year. That's why they just.
They were
sent that
asking for
letter out.
money too, right?
That's mostly what they're talking about. The other stuff is Jim is pushing the county, and Ken is being relatively responsive on making some changes to their tower ordinance that would help proliferate broadband. And it doesn't really matter to Sister Bay, because Sister Bay is pretty much covered, but it does matter to the rest of the county.
Yep. Okay. Economic Development has not met. Finance has met. You've seen the results of that tonight. Fire.
We did meet, just no minutes yet.
How convenient, right?
Budget.
Yes, budget.
Budget. Fire District Exploratory, probably same thing.
Has not met.
Historical Society.
You have in your packet the minutes of the
Somebody using the elevator?
Can be trying to.
September 5th meeting,
There's
along
an
with
elevator
the,
repair.
This is like a Stranger Things episode right now.
It's Liberty Grove's secret listening device that just activated.
the curator's report and the minutes of the September 5th meeting. If anybody has any questions, I can certainly answer them.
Holiday Lighting has not met. Library.
It's in the packet. And we're considering the vacancy created by Virginia's passing, and that somebody stepping on as a citizen would be willing to possibly serve as the chair. It doesn't seem like any of the citizen members have any interest in serving as the chair of the committee at this time.
Okay.
And that's where Ralph, had mentioned to Lou and I, do you want to step in? Lou and I both said, well, for this one meeting, we will. And I did see Lou and mention to him that you and I had talked, and that, from your standpoint, it would be best if we could try and find a citizen to keep being the chair rather than a town or a village board member. So, and Lou is in agreement with that.
Okay. I do have one citizen member who has come forward and would like to be appointed to the board. I just need to clarify with that individual if they potentially would be willing to be the chair. And they have had experience in the past, so it's something they could certainly accommodate, but I'll check with them first. Marina Fest.
We've had, we know we did not have a meeting this month. We'll have a meeting next month. Amy's here if anybody has any questions. Kind of we're in wind-up mode. Letters have gone out for next year, and
And how was Marina Fest this year?
We are meeting on the 14th of November.
And you'll have a better idea then of how it went.
Yes.
I can give you kind of an idea. Overall, Marina
Okay.
Fest financially was fairly successful. Continuing to produce a net income, which is great, and will
Okay.
eventually benefit all of those nonprofit parties that are part of the.
Great.
Excellent.
Okay. Parks should be in there. Personnel. Plan Commission. They're in there, and you've seen some of their issues we took care of with the hotel. SBAA.
SBA is in here, I believe.
I'm sure there'll be a lot more after next weekend to talk about.
Yeah.
Or this coming weekend, I should say.
The main thing at this time is there's agreement to move forward with strongly considering the alternative space in downtown, behind Skipstone. There's,
For an office?
yeah, so
Okay.
should have some definition on that as well next month.
And when is their lease or rent up at the current location?
December.
December, okay. Tourism zone.
August is in the packet, August open meeting. The September meeting was executive session only. We'll meet in an open meeting on Thursday, so.
Utilities.
Minutes are in the packet for the August 13th meeting of both committees. Any questions?
Ute Center.
Has not met.
Ad-hoc Rice Committee.
Main thing, unless Janelle has anything to add after this morning, would be just a reminder, as I mentioned last month, November 16th is the fundraiser kickoff party, 4 to 8.
And I can also say the committee approached Parks about changing some of the boards on the hockey rink area, and Parks agreed that we would do that.
Yeah.
So it came up through finance also. Anything to add on any committees that we,
The only one you didn't mention is an emergency management, but they haven't met yet.
oh, it's not on here, is it?
Yeah, no, it's not.
We need to add that. I don't know if everybody received the letter from Dan Kane about the emergency management update, that in 2014, 2015, when it was put together, somebody from the village worked with emergency management at the county to provide an update, and that update is now due again for next year. So he's asking if somebody from the village would volunteer to be involved with that again. There is a grant that's available to help that be done. As part of that grant, there's a certain match component to it. The match component, in the case of the village, if somebody volunteered for it, then the village would not have to do any financial match. The individual volunteering would be covering that match requirement. So we can talk about that further next month, but, because I know Denise is heavily involved and likes the involvement of the emergency management. I think she was involved with it, and I was a little bit when it was 4 years ago, so.
So while she's not here, should we volunteer?
I think we can make a motion, just like nail it right down.
Do it right now.
Okay. Consider a motion to convene an executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851G to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, Wisconsin statutes 19.851E, to deliberate and negotiate the purchase of public properties, invest in the public funds, or conduct other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Wisconsin statutes 19.851C, to discuss personnel and employee benefits. I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, Lino, yes?
Baker, yes?
Zashki, yes. Kazako, yes.
Oh, yes.
Duffy, yes?
We're now in closed sessions. We'll take a 5-minute recess while everybody packs up and.
Is it retirement day?